Yo, it's been a little minute, but thanks for tuning in to the Maniacal Pod Talk. I'm your host, Brian, Murph in the Streets. Mike, go ahead and remind these people who got the dopest intro out here. All right, and as I said, thanks for tuning in. You know, it's been a little minute, but we all know that things happen and sometimes life be life and you got to take a breath and recoup and reevaluate. And so, like I said, it's been a little while, but we just going to continue and keep this thing going. And I'm going to kind of be a little bit of all over the place today, and you'll be able to catch where I'm going with the topic of the day. And as I was sitting back thinking this week, when Mike hit me, he sent me a text message. He said, "Hey, man, where you at? You hiding?" And I'm like, "No, I ain't hiding. A brother just been going through it when it comes to this certain topic, right?" And as I was thinking, what can I talk about? What is a good topic for episode number 4? And somebody close to me said something, and they're like, you kind of been going through it this month. Maybe you should talk about that. And I'm like, you know what? You right. So that's what we're going to talk about today. And that brings me to the number one topic that people want to know about, right? And that's entrepreneurship. And entrepreneurship is kind of like the buzzword, the cool thing to say that I am, and the thing that's most popular to say. You'll see that on people's Instagram bio, entrepreneur. But like, what does that really mean? What does it mean to you? I know what it means to me, but what does it mean to you? And a lot of times it's not all lights and glamorous as people might think it is. And so I want to start off this topic in the direction of a question that many of us was asked in high school. And in high school, we had a guy come in, and he asked the age-old question: "What do you want to be when you grow up?" Right? And I remember this guy looking at me, and he asked me, "What do you want to be when you grow up?" And I told him what I thought I wanted to be when I grow up, and that was I want to do everything. Now, that sounds like a crazy answer to some people. It sounds like a crazy answer to him, obviously, because of his answer. And what he told me, he said, well, to do everything like you'll never master anything. And it always rubbed me the wrong way, because a lot of people that we see who are successful, they do more than one thing. Now, granted, you might only want to start off doing one thing, but if you got goals and aspirations, you can kind of branch off and do other things. And so I don't remember that guy's name, but I just remember that conversation. It's like perfectly like seared into my mind, him telling me and looking at me and kind of laughing at me, saying like, well, if you do that, then you'll never be good at everything. You just need to pick one thing. And I feel like that made me think that high schools don't really have a place for people who thought like I thought when I was in high school, people that think like I think today. And as a result of a business-minded person, because I believe I was more business-minded in high school, they let those types of people fall through the cracks. I don't know what type of curriculum could be there to cater and foster the mindset of somebody in high school, but I know for a fact that people like me, high school let us fall through the cracks. And as a result of that, you kind of go about your life and really just kind of look silly trying to figure things out on your own, I had a lot of my friends, they decided to go to college. Me, I I went straight to work and had the internet. And I'm 50-50 on both. Sometimes I wonder what life would have been like if I would have decided to go to college. I could have went to college and track scholarships and things like that, but I more so was ready to get to it. And I see some of the benefits of me just getting to it, and I see some of the things that's not so great about me just getting to it. And so I look at some of my friends who actually went to college and got degrees and things like that, and you can see the benefit of people going to school. Some of them, like, I don't want to like group them all together. What's a nice way to say this? I see. I'll say it like this. I feel like a major benefit of going to college is for connections. I don't think that I would have gotten anything out of it outside of some of those relationships that probably could have been built. But anyway, so I feel like it's cool for people to go to college if that's what you feel like you want to do. For people like me who took the other route, a job in the internet, you can find yourself feeling goofy at times because you're just trying to find your way, right? And I respect both. I respect people that went to college and I respect people that didn't go just the same, because a lot of my friends I can call on now that's really educated, whether it be different business situations. I can call them anytime I need advice, and we'll have a conversation. And they're always, ready to be a helping hand. And that kind of brings me to the next point, is this thing about mentors, right? And mentors ain't mentoring the way they used to mentor, or the way that we feel like they should probably mentor. You got the social media people that constantly tell you, you should pay your mentor or look for a mentor and pay them. Like me, I don't really see the point of paying somebody to be a mentor, because it's like, I don't really think you care about me at that point. I feel like it's more of a transaction at that point. Why am I paying you to spend time and give me the game? I'd rather get the game from somebody that I know want to see me succeed. I had one person in my life for a few years that I would look at like a mentor, but at some point, this was a much older person. At some point, I felt like they kind of wanted me around to just talk and have a good time and hang out, because, like I said, much older. And so, moral of that story is, mentors, you should be able to find a mentor that is able to help you, able to guide you in a direction that you want to go. But when you're thinking about finding a mentor, find a person that has the mindset that I'm going to help you until you don't need me anymore. To me, that's the only valuable type of mentor I would want in my life. If I'm going to mentor somebody in whatever the aspect may be, maybe it's starting up a business, maybe it's the t-shirt game, like, I'm going to give you everything I have until you don't need me anymore. And hopefully you'll end up teaching me some stuff. And so this is all kind of things that you go about the way that I did it. You go to work, you got the internet, you're teaching yourself things. You look for a mentor to try to learn some things from. And we always hear about these stories about men, not to downplay women, but for men, they say that we don't really get into our bag, if you will, when it comes to finding out what you want to do and being successful until your 40s and your 50s. And for me, I never really understood that until recently, going into my 40s. And the reason that they say that is because it's really a mindset shift. I don't know that young males, they say we develop slower anyway. Maybe that's true for some, maybe not for others. I feel like if you're a male in your 20s and your 30s and you're able to start business and figure out business and actually be successful, I feel like that's great, because you're ahead of the game. But for a lot of us, we really don't become successful or even find that mindset to be successful until the 40s and 30s. And honestly, I feel like that's because in your 30s, this is a funny concept. For me, I feel like in the man's 30s is almost like his second teenage phase. Because if you think about it, when you're an actual teenager and you're going through high school, you're figuring out everything. You're figuring out relationships with the opposite sex. You're figuring out relationships within your friend groups. You're figuring out what else? What popularity group you're in. You're figuring out how you deal with people. Maybe you're popular, less popular, like to be a loner. You're figuring out a whole lot of different things as a teenager, right? Then a male approaches their 20s. They're still coming fresh off of that teenage years where you feel like you figured some things out, but now you hit your 30s and it's like, okay, so the 30s, now you look at women differently. You look at those friend groups differently because Negroes change. We just gonna be honest about that. People change, and your friends, they come and they go. Some of your friends are still there. You'd be lucky to have some friends from your teenage years to your 40s, but it's just an interesting thing when you think about how your friends change when they don't necessarily have their parents taking care of them anymore. And so now that they're dealing with life, how they deal with life, and you're dealing with life, how you deal with life, you just start to discover a lot of things through the 30s. And that's why I say those 30s kind of feel like a second phase of your teenage years, because you think you figured it out, but then when you hit those 30s, man, and you approaching those 40s, you just feel different about life. And for me in particular, this past month, I've dealt with some things on the entrepreneurial side that just had me thinking like, yo, you got bills that you just really don't have to have. And so it's like when you young, 20s and 30s, you're not thinking like that. But then when you really hit that next stage of life, when things really become important to you, maybe you have kids, a family, whatever the case may be, it's just something about entering into those 40s really upset when somebody playing with your bag or playing with your money, and you got to figure out what needs to be paid here and there. Your mindset really shifts, and so it's like, do I really need Netflix? I would like to keep Netflix, but do I really need it? Like, so your mindset changes, and the things that you feel like are leisure, they're not really important to you. And I feel like that's the mindset that a lot of men come into when they get into those 40s and 50s, because a lot of those frivolous things just really don't matter. And so let's see. You take all of that life experience and you think about, okay, life is lifing. And on top of that, you want to be an entrepreneur too. Now, this is the interesting thing, right? We all know that being an entrepreneur isn't for everybody. And I feel like everybody should experience it, but it really takes a certain type of strong stomach to be able to really depend on yourself to have a livelihood, right? And so let's talk about the pros and cons of being an entrepreneur. So Mike, I'm gonna have you go ahead and throw up this picture, the entrepreneurship picture, because we are going to talk about the pros and cons, right? And so let's just go through the list. The pros: controlling your own schedule. Now, what this looked like for me, it was great because when my son Uriah was first born, I was able to make every doctor's appointment, every playground appointment, just whatever he had going on. I was able to set my own schedule. I was cleaning probably 6 or 7 buildings at that time, but I had it set up in a way to where I had time on my hands. And a lot of us, we already say we want our own business before the time that we can have in our hands, right? And I have really only missed, since he's been to school, maybe 3 field trips, but not because I couldn't make it, but because he's like, all right, your mom can come to this field trip because you come to all of them. And so it's not that I couldn't be, it's just like I don't miss anything. And for me, like that's a major pro. And so looking at across from there, maintaining a work-life balance, like that's a con. You think about maintaining a work-life balance, doing your own thing and being an entrepreneur, it's easy to get wrapped up in I need to do this and I need to make sure I'm on top of the next piece of the business that wants to you want to grow and want to do well. And so if you don't really have, let's say if you're in a family setting, right? If and we talk about relationships, all of this is it all kind of goes together. If you're going to be an entrepreneur and you're going to be in a relationship, it's really important for you to have somebody that's going to be able to maintain certain elements of life when it comes to, maintaining that work life balance, because there are going to be things that you can't do that you're going to need somebody to help with. And also you're going to need somebody to kind of keep you in check too, to be like, okay, you've been doing a little too much. Let's tone it down. Let's have this family time or whatever the case may be. So you need somebody that can help you with that. So going to the next pro, managing your company profits. I feel like we all know what that is. Like, you managing the money that come in. Sometimes you're gonna have high months depending on what your business is. Sometimes things are just gonna be steady. Sometimes things might be low. But it's up to you how much you make. Whether you go hard in the paint, whether you go, a little less aggressive. And that's a pro, right? But on the flip side, the con, the financial responsibilities and the challenges, because there are always those things that nobody lets you know that's going to happen. The financial responsibility, me with the cleaning company, it's always just been me. So I haven't really had to worry about nobody else depending on me outside of my son or whatnot to make sure everything flows the way that it flows. I've had people work with me. My brother worked heavily with me for a little while when I could afford to do that. If I've had other jobs, I've always had my friends come and help other people make a couple of dollars. So the financial responsibilities, you got to really take a look at that, because a lot of times, one of the things, I talked about in a previous episode with the t-shirt business, Righteous Society, when it first started out, how the partnership split and we went different ways, but I still had a financial liability there because I had to pay a certain amount of dollars. And so when you think about a business, you got to really understand that there may be times when you running your business is taken from your actual home and household. And I don't think people really realize that you sacrifice all of these things for the actual business. Okay, so moving on, another pro, the potential for wealth. That kind of goes along with, managing the company's profits too. That's really something you don't have to stick on for a long time, because if you doing business right and you're executing how you should be executing, you got a boatload of potential there. So on the flip side of that, you got the added responsibility that can cause stress. Man, listen. Being an entrepreneur, it is stressful. It is not all lights, it's not all cameras, it's hard. The amount of stress that it can put on you as an individual, a business owner, it can have your blood pressure go up, your cholesterol go up, it can have your chest hurting at night, it can have you losing sleep. It could send you into a spiral. You can gain weight. And I'm saying things that's happened to me. Your knees hurting when you go up some steps all of a sudden out the blue because your life just ain't what you feel like it should be, right? But all of those things kind of maintain the home aspect of all of these things. I'm gonna always express having your home in order, right? Because if your home is in order, then hopefully some of those stresses. But don't let your home not be in order and you trying to do your own thing. I'm telling you, it is super hard, right? And so the stress that can come from being an entrepreneur needs to be looked at a little more. And before you make that leap, or as you make that leap, realize that it is going to be stressful. It is going to be hard. It's going to be nights that you just feel like, yo, I should just stop. And it's okay to stop. I'm not going to be like lying to you and tell you that there aren't times that I've started and stopped plenty of different things. I got things that's on the back burner now because I feel like certain times you got to stop certain things because it's just not time right now. And then you pick them up as you go. But main point of this con is it is stressful. It can be fun sometimes, but it's honestly when you're in it and you're starting it, it's more stress than fun. And I can't stress enough on how stressful of a situation it could be. All right, so let's see. You're pursuing your passion. Pursuing your passion. That's a pro, right? And when you realize what your passion is and you get to a point in knowing what that looks like for you, that's when people say find a job or a business that doesn't feel like work. When you're doing something that's your actual passion. And I know a lot of us, we have a hard time trying to figure out what the passion is. And one of the easiest ways to pinpoint what your passion is just what's the thing that really gets your heart burning? Not like heartburn, but like gets your heart burning to the aspect of like, man, I can't stop sleeping because I'm always thinking about this. Or, for me personally, being a dad is something that's a passion of mine. And I have, a nonprofit in the works that deals with dads and kids and things like that. It's something that's been on the back burner for a while. But recently I'm learning having multiple jobs right now is like, look, that thing is going to be the thing that I'm passionate about, that I'm going to want to do every day, that's not going to feel like a job. And so the pro behind pursuing your passion is that you're not going to feel like you're working. So locate that thing within you that keeps you going, keeps you moving. And I don't want to throw things out there because it could be a number of different things for any of us, but that's a pro, right? Pursuing your passion. The con, dealing with taxes. Man, listen, you don't want to get me started on taxes. Nobody really gave us the tax game growing up, especially in the inner city. Our parents don't really know the tax game. The schools don't teach you the tax game. You only know you work a job, they take out taxes, and you get a check once a year. Man, when you are getting into the business world, you look at taxes completely different. You got reliabilities, things that you need to take care of because we all know the people that's really making the money, they not getting no knocks on the door from the IRS. It's us. They gonna be on your head about your taxes, whether it is like federal, whether it is state. There are things that you got to pay for, whether it be vendor's license. Like there are just things that you have to pay for as an entrepreneur that a regular person with a job just don't even have to think twice about. Side note, we have to figure out a way to educate ourselves how to use the tax system for our benefit. And that is, I don't know who can help with that. That's something that I have a hard time Googling still to this day, because there are gatekeepers when it comes to the taxes. Just find you a good accountant and make sure that accountant is talking to you regularly. Make sure that accountant knows what they're talking about. How do you know if your accountant know what they're talking about if you don't know what you're talking about? I don't know, but you can ask some questions. Google it. Like they should know how to move you around into a way that I think about one of my best friends, Tiff, her business. She was telling me one time that her accountant realized that X amount of dollars was coming through a certain portal, and that if she changed her business structure, it would be more beneficial. You need to find somebody that's an accountant that's going to tell you those types of things, right? I'm going to move on because taxes, man, I got a lot to say about that. You want to keep as much money as possible, but that's for another day. More flexible retirement. more flexible retirement, I guess that could be a thing depending on how well you do with your business. If your goal is to retire early, if you execute how you should execute and have everything tidy, maybe you can one day sell it, have an exit. Who knows? But one of the pros is of an entrepreneur, you can retire a little earlier than what most people. We know the way the economy is set up today, man, it's nothing to go into Walmart or um, Kohl's or any of these places and see somebody working and they're like 70, uh, almost 80. Like people are working like crazy. And so having you a business on the side at least and being able to maybe prepare for early retirement it can be a pro. Um, the opposite of that, the con, business success isn't guaranteed. And we all know that it is not guaranteed. Um, but with that said, don't be afraid to fail. We know that there's a high likelihood of a business not succeeding, but I feel like they don't succeed because we don't have the knowledge when we start one off. And do your Googles, do your research. If you can find that type of mentor that's actually going to walk you through and hold your hand with certain stuff, those are things that can help, you know, your business to do well. But I don't know, man. Just for me, when I think about that list we just ran through, I think about the type of month that I've had, and it's been especially stressful for me because most people don't know I technically have like 3 jobs plus a side hustle. So I'm gonna say like 3.5 things that I do. The cleaning business. I work for a nonprofit, doing like graphics and things like that. I work at the Marriott part time, and the t-shirt business part time. And in particular, the thing that gave me the most stress this month is the cleaning company, right? Because you have contracts in place, and this particular company that I'm working for, they're about a month and a half behind on their payment. And so for me, when I think about what I need to do with the money that they owe me, it doesn't really allow me to do the job that they're wanting me to do. Because within this invoice, they have, paper products, whether it be toilet paper, whether it be paper towels, whether it be hand soap. They expect those things to be in the building. But if you don't pay me so that I can go buy those things, what do you expect me to do? What do you think I have to do when I don't have the money that you're supposed to send me? Like, it's coming out of my own pocket now. And remember when I said a lot of times when you're doing your business things, there are times where it comes from your pocket, your own household. And so for me, when I'm dealing with something like that, and it's not the first time it's happened with this particular company, but that doesn't make it any more or less stressful because you still got bills coming. You still got all of your obligations. And for me, it just put me in a place to where I just didn't want to do nothing. Like, it's funny. My boy Lano, he says that when he's, dealing with somebody, he tells them like, look, life is life and right now. And around this certain time of the month, I'm gonna be a little more grouchy. I'm gonna be a little hard to deal with between this week and that week because my money gonna be funny. Whatever bills coming up, rent, mortgage, whatever the case may be. And so for me, I kind of experienced a little bit of that this whole month because it's like, man, I don't want to go to the gym. I don't really want to talk to nobody. I like the PlayStation. I know a lot of people look at guys weird for playing video games. I ain't want to play the PlayStation. I probably got updates and stuff I need to do before I could play a game, but I just didn't care. And so that's part of the reason why, I had this little month-long break from doing the show. But like, it was a con-filled month for me. But at some point, if you're going to be an entrepreneur, you have to ask yourself, like, this is what you're going to do because this is what you signed up for, right? And I was contacting this company that owed me the money. Send an email out 1 week, didn't hear nothing. The following week you hear, oh, I got it, I'm gonna look into it. Another week goes by. And so I got to the point, I'm on the third week. I sent an invoice on top of an invoice, and I'm like, yo, I CC'd, I copied, forwarded, anybody I could think of. And then I heard something about, oh, yeah, we intend to pay you. I'll let you know when the invoice is paid. I'm like, well, you still ain't told me nothing. And so they got till Monday to let me know when my money gonna be there so that I can live my life and do what I need to do. But, so like I said, it's not my only income and, the work-life balance situation. I do have a job, and I only took that job because I know that I can be off by 3 o'clock to go pick my son up from school every day at 3:15. So all of my things work for me, and you have to figure out how to maneuver and what to do, whether it's business and work that works for you. Like, you have to have it set up that way. But a lot of times this month, I ask myself the question, and don't feel bad about asking yourself the question. Like, man, is this worth it? Like, dealing with the stresses of wanting, needing other people to pay your company that you're trying to do, like, is all of this worth it? I could just go find a job doing X, Y, and Z, and then, next thing you know, you on Indeed.com, you on LinkedIn, you just looking like what's out there, and man, I really ain't trying to do none of this stuff. And when I think about it, for me personally, like, the answer is yes. It's worth it to me because, for the simple fact, Eric Thomas, the hip hop preacher, he always say this. He said, I'm going to get a reward for the pain that I felt. And so the stress that I go through on I'm going to say a monthly basis is worth it to me because I'm going to get a reward for all of that. And for me, the reward is having time on my hands, being able to go to every field trip at the zoo. I'm tired of going to the zoo field trip, but I'm going to be there. And so all the cons of being an entrepreneur, for me personally, they work out because of what my ultimate goal is to be a really good dad and a provider for him, right? So the answer for me is worth it, even though I doubt it, and even though I question it from time to time. This is ultimately what I want to do. This is what I've felt like I was here to be. I'm not necessarily doing what I'm passionate about yet, but I'm working on it. And when I get there, I imagine what that's going to feel like to actually want to make an impact on my community in the way that I see myself doing here in the future. One of the things that we don't really think about or take time to realize or take time to recognize in life is how God talks to us in nature. If we was to sit back and pay attention, like, God leaves little lessons everywhere, and in particular nature. And there's a clip that I'm gonna have Mike play for us that kind of just explains my mindset when I think about the totality of being an entrepreneur and what it actually looks like. If we could understand this concept that you're about to listen to, I feel like it can help us with those cons, right? When you're laying down at night contemplating, should I just quit? When you're thinking to yourself, is this worth it? We got to understand the growth process. And if we can understand the growth process of what this life looks like, this entrepreneurial life looks like, having that maniacal mindset, what that looks like, that unwavering commitment to myself and my goals and my dreams and my vision. If we can understand in nature what that looks like, I feel like we could apply it to our lives and we could take it a little more easier on ourselves if we understand the journey. So, Mike, I'm gonna have you go ahead and play that clip for us, and then we'll talk about it here in a second.
Did you know that a tree has to grow in two directions at the same time? Did you know that?
A tree has to grow in two
It's
directions.
always growing in two directions at the same time. It's growing down and it's growing up. And what's interesting, if you could see the part of the tree that's under the ground, it looks very similar to the part of the tree that's above the ground. The root system is very similar to the fruit
That's crazy.
system.
I never thought about that.
See what's happening? Look at, right, exactly. Look what's happening to your face right now.
I've seen millions of trees in my life.
Right. And so something as common as a tree, but watch this. Here's what's interesting about a tree. The nature of a tree is that it is both gravitropic and phototropic. Now, you've never probably heard, maybe, have you ever heard of the word gravitropic before? Phototropic?
Never.
Okay. So gravitropic means it grows away from light and towards gravity. That's the root system. It's gravitropic in nature. So the seed goes in the ground, and then the tree starts growing down before it starts growing up. Now, here's what's interesting. When the seed is under the ground, it's dark under the ground, it's damp, and it has resistance. The root system has resistance. It has to push through the dirt to go down further, right? Well, once it breaks through the earth growing up, there's no more resistance. And the part of the tree that's above the earth grows towards light and away from gravity. So the tree is growing in two directions at the same time. Now, okay, how does that help me in my life, though? That sounds really cool, right? Well, that is one of the most beautiful pictures of the way life works that you've ever seen, that I've ever seen. How? It's the work that you do in the dark when it's difficult and damp that makes the work that you do that everybody sees in the light work. Nobody saw you. Everybody sees you now in this beautiful studio, on this podcast, on Instagram Live, on YouTube, on whatever. Everybody can see that. Oh my goodness, David Shands. But they didn't see the gravitropic nature of your journey while you were on your way here, working deep into the wee hours of the morning to become the person. That's the root system. Now, everybody proclaims and professes to desire the fruit system. Everybody wants to grow up towards, just reach for the stars, and I want everybody to see how tall I can be and how sweet my fruit is and blah, blah, blah. Well, that sounds great. But if you're unwilling to go down, you cannot go up.
One of the things that I like about that clip is he says, the root system is identical to the fruit system. The root system identical to the fruit system. And if you think about what a tree looks like, you can see it. Maybe you've never thought about it. Before I seen that clip myself, I didn't really think about that or consider that, right? So you got the roots that's going down. There is a lot of opposition. There's a lot of stress. There's darkness. There's uncertainty. There's, the wetness. There's the coldness. There's all of these things that the tree has to contend with when it's growing. And oftentimes we don't really appreciate that work that the tree is doing underneath the scenes, and we just look at what's on top and we look at that and we appreciate that. But when I was saying about how God puts things in nature that if we really broke it down and took the time to appreciate, that is exactly how life is. And so if I apply that to the entrepreneurial life, like all of that growing under the ground, all of those stresses, those cons, me having this con-filled month, that is the strength that you're building, the foundation that you're building to really grow and shine into the actual goals that you have. And that's another reason why it's really important for you to find what your passion is, so that your passion on the top side, the fruit side of that tree, is going to be really the life that you want, and the things that you desire for yourself and for others around you. That's the fruit system. But we got to make sure that we understand the root system while we're on this journey, because it's not easy. You're going to find yourselves doubting, can I do this? And I'm just imagine yourself that the tree growing down the roots. The tree, the seed, whatever you want to call it, has no idea what's down there. And if we could put our mindset there, we have no idea what's on this path to entrepreneurship. We don't know what we're going to come up against. We're going to have those dark, lonely, cold nights. But in those moments, you have to realize, like, look, I am here for a reason, and I will get a reward for the stress and the pain that I'm dealing with now. And that's the fruit side, right? And so I just hope that, run that back if you need to, and let that encourage you, and really try to pull something from that, and find a way to see yourself in that example. And like I said, there's many of other things that we can go down a list of that God puts out there in nature. We can talk about plants, just anything, the way the insects react to certain things, the way the animals react. And then maybe I'll look for some of that stuff in a future episode. We can maybe apply some of that to how life is for us. In closing up here soon, I want to mention one last thing. One of the vital things that a person must have is a characteristic trait, I feel. And that is just to simply be a good person. If you can be a good person in every scenario, no matter what's going on with you, I really feel like your life as an entrepreneur is going to be slightly easier. And I only say slightly easier because being a good person, oftentimes we feel like doesn't get us anywhere, right? And I can understand, because a lot of times you find people that, maybe want you to work with them, and they might not pay you what you feel like you need to be paid, and they might not give you nothing. You might do a lot of work for somebody, and they might just not give you nothing. And maybe they look at it because, well, maybe you didn't ask. And, if you'd asked me, I'd have gave it to you. Sometimes it's an honor system too. You know what I mean? If you feel like somebody is working for you, being a good person towards somebody, if they're good people, they'll look out for you too. But being a good person, don't think that people aren't going to mistreat you and use you. It's really for your own moral high ground, right? You are a good person because that's who you are, and God is going to bless you and your efforts no matter what other people do to you, because you'll still have people that call you, waste your time, get you on wild goose chases that you like, man, why people keep just playing with my money and playing with my time? Don't worry about none of that, right? We just going to focus on being a good person. We're going to focus on what our root system is telling us, teaching us, and showing us. We're going to 10 toes down on that, and we just going to continue to grow. We're going to continue to learn. We're going to continue to build what we know that we have in our heart. Because if I've talked about this previously too, somebody is waiting on that passion project that you have within inside of yourself. There are countless ways that I could show as an example that people has been able to bless me on my journey of being an entrepreneur based on the work that they did. And I know that the things that I'm going to do and the things that I'm working on is going to help somebody else down the road. So, just continue to focus on you. Go make your pros and cons list on being an entrepreneur. Maybe it's not meant for you, and that's okay. Never let somebody downplay you for not wanting to, be an entrepreneur. Because like I said, it's not all cracked up to be what everybody think it is sometimes. But I feel like this was a good get my feet back in the water episode. I'm pretty sure you could take something out of this. And I'm going to go ahead and get started on the next one. Until next time, be maniacal. Mike, man, you know what you got to do for me, my brother.